Hello, my name is Charles Hodge. Not only was I known as a chief defender of historical Calvinism, I was also a scholar, educator, and distinguished American Presbyterian in 19th century America. Born in Philadelphia on December 27, 1797, to my father and mother Hugh Hodge and Mary Blanchard, my father, being an immigrant from Ireland, was also a military surgeon during the Revolutionary War. Sadly, a few months after my birth, my father fell ill with yellow fever, where he later passed away, leaving my mother to raise my brother and I by herself. My mother, wanting my brother and I to be successful like our father, who was a physician, in 1812 we moved to Princeton, New Jersey, where we were both able to attend Princeton College. Graduating in 1815, I joined a revival movement that was happening on the campus. Being previously taught of religion from my mother, who was part of a Presbyterian church, this movement was ultimately what converted me towards this spiritual way of thinking. The following year, I joined the theological seminary in Princeton under the advisement of Samuel Miller and Archibald Alexander, who took me under his wing, taking on the role as my father figure. Dr. Alexander was a man who taught and coached me all that I knew and allowed me to accompany him on his many preaching trips. In 1819, I was licensed by the Presbytery of Philadelphia as a minister, where I preached at many churches across Philadelphia and New Jersey. Finishing my studies in the seminary, Archibald Alexander offered me the position to be a professor in the seminary. This was a complete shock to me, and I did not know how to respond, but Archibald allowed me to think about this matter, advising me to spend the winter learning the Hebrew language. Accepting this offer, by the year 1822, I had become a professor of biblical literature at Princeton Theological Seminary, and furthered my teaching to professor of theology in the year 1840. In 1822, I also married my wife, Sarah Bach, who was the great-granddaughter of Benjamin Franklin. Two of our children, Alexander and Casper, followed in my footsteps, both becoming professors at Princeton Theological Seminary, and two went on to becoming ministers. Unfortunately, in 1849, Sarah passed away and I remarried to Mary Hunter Stockton. In 1824, I helped found the Chi Phi Society and also created the Biblical Repertory and Princeton Review, which I was its editor and writer of its many pages of literature for more than 40 years. I also contributed in writing more than 150 articles during my lifetime. To further my knowledge of biblical literature, coming from different countries, from the years 1826 through 1828, I traveled abroad to Paris, Halle, Berlin, and other European countries to study. In Europe, where I studied with well-known European biblical and theological scholars, these credentials allowed me to become one of the top Hebrists in America when I returned home. I was also aided by Joseph Addison Alexander to further assist me through my linguistic and philological expertise. I contributed highly to the Presbyterian Church through my active participation in the church and through my written articles in the Princeton Review. Making my way up in the educational and missionary board, I was also able to argue against the new school viewed revivalists, such as those that discredited Calvinism and the concepts that altered the words of the Bible, such as the teachings of Darwinism, which was a growing worldview. Having a very rigid outlook on my views, I also made sure to have a tender heart towards those of different views. My conservative view of how churches should view religion gained me the reputation where some said Hodge was a lion in controversy. In 1851, I was able to assume the position of principal of the Princeton Theological Seminary after the death of my mentor, Archibald Alexander. I also continued to be a professor at the college teaching exegetical, didactic, and polemic theology, creating a program that defended the American Calvinism view. The school became one of the most diverse schools in the 19th century, teaching students from many different foreign countries. Also, several books such as A Commentary on the Epistle of the Romans, which was my greatest work for its masterly comments on the letter. I also published 3-volumed books published many years apart. This tactic of publishing these books so far apart was to bring more students into the Princeton College to hear my lectures in person, rather than just reading my works through these literatures. Some other views that I spoke up about were that about Darwinism. Writing the book, What is Darwinism?, I expressed that this view was an essence of atheism. Believing that there was a creator, it was hard to believe that complex life could fit so perfectly into the niches of the world without being assisted by a higher power. Though I did agree that there is a relationship between Christianity and science, and did not assume that all ideas of evolution would conflict with that of religion, the evolutionary movement did concern me about how religion would be taught in America. I argued that what was distinctive to Darwinism's view was a rejection of teleology, the rejection of the purpose in the natural world. Teleology being the study of greater purpose. My overall goal of teaching was to create new ideas of how to defend the ancient faith for the future generations with the growing contemporary challenges. I also spoke out against the mistreatment of slaves during 1830, but did not condemn slavery itself. During the time of the Civil War, where there was a divide between the Presbyterian Church, I tried to find a solution and middle ground for our torn church. Looking more into this matter, I began to realize that slavery itself was wrong and followed the abolitionist behind Abraham Lincoln. In my last days, I lived in the accompaniment of my children and grandchildren. To comfort my daughter before I passed, I said to her, "Don't weep. To be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. To be with the Lord is to see Him. To see the Lord is to be like Him." On June 19, 1878, in Princeton, New Jersey, I passed, surrounded by family. In my life, I stayed true to my faith while also treated those that I opposed with humility and respect. My legacy ranged for about a century, ending in February 1937 with the passing of my grandson. Through my 56 years of teaching up to 3,000 students, my legacy was able to open the doors for even more brilliant scholars such as Jonathan Edwards, and in turn earned me the title as one of the most distinguished American Presbyterian and defenders of Calvinism in the 19th century America.